So, unfortunately, I don't have a Houston Dynamo jersey or a t-shirt, so I'm just pretty much wearing this orange t-shirt since their main color, of course, is the orange, and that's kind of what's unique about the Houston Dynamo as the only team in the league to actually have orange as their primary color. But today, we are going to do the moving forward series for the Houston Dynamo, and you know, what's so disappointing about the Dynamo is that this team could have been a playoff team. I mean, from what we saw in the MLS's back tournament and also what we saw in phase one of the schedule, they look like a team that was a force to be reckoned with in the West. I mean, I know in the MLS's back tournament, they obviously didn't make it out of their group, but keep in mind, they were playing in what many people thought it was a group of death, and they really was on potentially on verge on the final day of potentially qualifying. And they also took LAFC pretty much to the brinks in terms of them able to defeat them and gave them all they can handle in that crazy free draw. And as soon as when we get to phase one of the schedule, they look like one of the most dangerous teams in the league with their attack just clicking on all cylinders. But then as we head into phase two of the schedule, yeah, this is when the things kind of collapse for the Dynamo, and they went in just a downward spiral of a turn where they just never recover in terms of potentially get them back into the form that they were in the MLS's back tournament and also phase one of the restart of the regular season. So they finished this season. Surprisingly, I'm kind of shocked the fact they only won 4 games this season, because I thought, at least from the good form that they were in back in the MLS's back tournament and also during phase one of the schedule, I would have thought that they won more than four games, especially one of those 4 wins came during that horrendous stretch that they were, where they only won 1 game out of the last 14 to finish the season, and they only got 21 points this season. Now they have scored 30 goals so far this season and allow 40 this season with a goal differential of -10, and they finished dead last in the Western Conference. Now, the MVP of this team, I was going to say Alberth Elis, because, you know, Elis really meant a lot to this team, and you can clearly see that when he was finally sold off to this team and he was no longer there, how much of an impact that he has in terms of that attack. And the attack just never looked the same without Alberth Elis on that team. But I'm actually going to go with Darwin Quintero, mainly because, you know, I want to go with an MVP that is still currently with the team. But also, it's actually Darwin Quintero, the one that actually lead not only the goal scoring chart, but also in the assist leader chart with 7 goals and 10 assists this season. And, you know, I'm not going to regret the fact that Minnesota did let Darwin Quintero walk the last off season, because you can clearly see there was definitely some tension between him and the Loons, and especially Adrian Heath, with the way that there was some sour relationship between him and the club, so that, you know, it was always going to be a case where he maybe need a new club to have kind of a fresh of scenery and a way to recapture that form that he had during his first 2 years with the Loons, and he definitely showed that this season with the Dynamo. I mean, he's been absolutely amazing on the attack alongside with Elis, and there's no doubt he's going to be the MVP of this team. Now, the most disappointing player of the Houston Dynamo, I could have gone with one of those defenders for the Dynamo, because I thought once again this season the Dynamo struggle on the defensive end. But I'm going to say Mauro Manotas, mainly because this has been a shocking year for Mauro Manotas, and probably the first time I've ever seen him struggle this much this season, because you're talking about a guy that has been just a consistent goal scorer in the league, not just in the last season, but for the past couple of years. He always are going to guarantee at least double-digit goals scored this season. And for whatever reason in this year, he has not only not even came close to hitting that double-digit mark, but he has only scored 3 goals this season. Now, obviously, I know this season has been kind of tough for a lot of these players, and, you know, a lot of these players, they definitely have a lot of adversity that they have to face because of the shortened season, and also the schedule being so congested, and not to also mention the fact that they might have to be worried about their family members and missing them during all this time they're playing. But yeah, I'm not sure maybe if that's kind of the thing that got to Mauro Manotas, because he was really cursed with this team. Like, he went through a long spell without scoring a goal, and it only took until decision day where he finally broke his curse, where he had, 14 games without scoring a goal, and that is just so unlike Mauro Manotas, with the way that he's just been such a lethal goal scorer. And this was a guy that was talking about, besides Elis might be the one that make the jump to Europe, he was going to be the next one that could potentially be making the jump to Europe, and that the Dynamo potentially are going to sell them. And that because of the fact that he has such a down season like that, they hope that he can recover next year, but they also hope that this doesn't just damage some of the asset that they can, of course, sell him off to Europe, and that they can get a good investment out of that. Now, in terms of the top goal scorer, as I mentioned, Darwin Quintero leads that list with 7 goals, alongside with Memo Rodriguez with 5. Alberth Elis currently have 4 goals. Mauro Manotas with 3, tied with Ariel Lassiter, who also have 3 goals. Top assist leader, you got Darwin Quintero again with 10 assists. Darwin Sarin with 4 assists. Alberth Elis and Memo Rodriguez with 3 assists. And Zarek Valentin also with 3 assists to round out the top assist leader. What went right for this Dynamo team? Well, as I said, during that phase 1 of the restart of the regular season, and also during the MLS's back tournament, this attack was very lethal. Like, this was definitely one of the most scariest attack in that. I remember that game when they put 5 past Sporting KC. I was thinking that this looked like it's going to be one of the most dangerous attack, in the way that they just basically go on the transition with so much pace on the wing, and just completely caught the other defense on the transition. It just shows you that this team definitely have a lot of potential of doing good thing. And again, the attack, it was really lethal during the time when they were actually informed. But then as we get into the part when they only won 1 game out of the last 14, that's when that attack started to become very, very stale. They eventually did cash in on the Alberth Elis sale, but also this is where I'm also going to transition into what went wrong with the Houston Dynamo this season. And the first thing I'm going to talk about what went wrong, besides the fact that I already mentioned of the collapse in phase 2 of the restart and beyond, where they only won 1 game out of the last 14. Like, when you only won 1 game in pretty much 2/3 of what this season is, yeah, you're probably not going to make the playoffs if you have that bad of a run. But I thought the other thing that went wrong with the Dynamo is that I think they cashed in on the Alberth Elis investment at the wrong time. I understand that, yes, Elis for a long time has been rumored to go to Europe. I mean, I was kind of surprised that he didn't leave this Dynamo team during last off season, because there was a lot of rumbling that he was potentially going to make the jump, and that the Dynamo was going to cash in. And eventually they did cash in, but it was kind of strange that they did it right in the middle of the season. And I understand that they want, this is probably their biggest asset to try to cash in, and trying to eventually get a whole sum of money out of Alberth Elis, but I was thinking they would do it during the off season, not in the middle of the season. And we see many MLS teams, they eventually do cash in terms of some of their best players and ship them off to Europe, and that a lot of them usually do in the off season, because if you did it in the middle of the season, that could really create havoc in terms of your team, and losing probably one of your best leader during the middle of the season is definitely going to be very hurtful in terms of your team during this season. And I just feel like losing a leader like Elis on the attack really hurt the team morale of this team, and it's just no wonder why that attack just looked completely off for the last part of this season, or not even the last part, but pretty much for the entire second half of this season. And that I feel like if they were going to potentially sell Elis, they should have waited until either this off season, or they should have sold him in last off season, not like literally in the middle of the season when they are trying to fight for playoffs and when they are actually in a good run. The other thing that went wrong, I'm not going to mention this a lot because this is kind of a common theme for the Dynamo for the past couple of years, and that is they still struggle on the road. I mean, this season, I think they only won one game so far this season on the road. Yeah, this is a team that just tends to struggle on the road. It's been kind of a habit for the past couple of years, and that's something that they need to eventually fix because, I talked about before with the Dynamo, they cannot afford to just keep struggling on the road and keep relying on BBVA Compass Stadium as the place to get them at home. And as we have seen in the last two seasons, that fortress that was at BBVA Compass Stadium is started to kind of crumble a little bit with the way that they're now dropping Resort at home. And when you're a team that struggle on the road and you don't pick up Resort and you start to drop points at home too, yeah, that could be a very disastrous kind of disastrous kind of point, and that is also a recipe of potentially not making the playoffs in an MLS season. So yeah, they either need to fix their road form or they gotta make sure to do much better at home and just not afford to drop too many points at home as they have done this season and also the previous season. Now, moving forward for the Houston Dynamo, obviously they are going to use the Elis money to try to rebuild the squad. I think most likely they probably will try to get a DP attacker, although I have already heard that they have they're going to have a new attacker, and I think, oh god, I forgot what his name is, but he's currently on loan right now, and I think his first name is Benjamin, but that was the guy that they brought in just a couple of months back, and he actually haven't made any appearance with the Dynamo. I thought they were just going to bring him in, and pretty much he would be kind of the guy that replace Alberth Elis. So with him coming into the squad next season, we'll see whether or not if he, of course, can do that, but I still think they might need to go after another DP attacker, and they also need to fix some of their issue that they have in the midfield and defense. I mean, this season, yes, they concede 40 goals, which is one of the most in the Western Conference, but it could have been more if it wasn't for Marko Maric, who I think he is another goalkeeper that's kind of a little bit underrated and kind of unfortunately fell in the same situation that Joe Willis was in this Dynamo team, because I remember when Joe Willis was with this Dynamo team, he was actually a very, very decent goalkeeper, and you're seeing it now with Nashville SC of how I think he finally is starting to get the attention, the fact that he's actually a really decent goalkeeper, and that he never kind of got that recognition when he was with the Dynamo. This is the same case with Marko Maric right now, and he really had to make some very decent save throughout this season, where the Dynamo could have easily gave up more than 40 goals if it wasn't for Maric making some very decent save in most of the game this season. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of moving forward is that I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did yesterday, or something that I said yesterday in yesterday's video about FC Cincinnati moving forward, and that, of course, is their current coach actually the right fit in terms of the rebuild. And I'm going to say it with the Dynamo is Tab Ramos actually the right man for the rebuild? Now, just like Yamstad with FC Cincinnati, I'm not going to blame Tab Ramos too much in terms of this season, and he hasn't really done very well and kind of put this team a step back of what their rebuild is. But I thought this was kind of a weird season for the Dynamo, where they know that the rebuild is eventually going to happen, but they try the best to not admit it and try to kind of retool a little bit to still remain competitive, and it just did not work out for them. And now the fact that they just sold off probably their best player during this season, there's no doubt that the Dynamo is going to go into a rebuild this off season, and that once Tab Ramos does bring the right player to this team, I think this will be the time where I think we could judge whether or not Tab Ramos is good enough with this team, because most of the players that he got this season isn't really his players. And also knowing the fact that this is his first time coaching in MLS, first time head coach in MLS, it can get tricky in the first year, and that a lot of head coaches, when they coach their first year in MLS, they do tend to struggle unless they're giving a very decent squad. And I'm not going to blame Tab Ramos too much with the way that the squad that he worked with, for the most part, isn't the one that I think he was hoping to basically built to a team to be competitive in the Western Conference. And finally, the last thing moving forward for the Dynamo is that I'm looking forward to the big announcement that they're going to make in November 17. So before I wrote the board in terms of all these things for my moving forward series for the Dynamo, I heard that they were making a big announcement on their YouTube channel and also on their team website that they're going to make a big announcement on November 17 alongside with Stu Holden. And, you know, I'm not sure what exactly the announcement is going to be, but I have a feeling it must be something to do with the logo that they're going to announce. And, you know, throughout this season, another thing that a lot of people probably forgot about the Houston Dynamo is that they're actually going to rebrand heading into next season, and they're gonna kind of do something the Chicago Fire is doing, which is completely change their logo and kind of alter their name a little bit. Although the name, from what I heard, heading into the next season is kind of going to be very similar. And I'm actually glad the fact that they keep the Dynamo name, because that was one thing that I was very worried when I heard about the announcement that they were going to think about changing the name. And the last thing we need is another team that's going to be changed their unique nickname to like an FC or United. But I think that they'll probably unveil the logo, which I already kind of saw the leak version of it. It's definitely a nice, decent logo, but at the same time, I feel like it looks more like a baseball logo rather than actually a soccer kind of logo in MLS. But we'll see whether or not if that is pretty much the big announcement that they're gonna announce on November 17, or is it just gonna be something else. But either way, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're a Dynamo fan, what do you think went right for this team this season, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how you're going to potentially rebuild heading into this off season, and how, you know, next year it's going to be a year where I'm not going to be so sure whether or not if the Dynamo is going to be ready in terms of being competitive in the West. And especially this offseason, again, I feel like this is really the time where they got to admit to themselves that, you know, we're going to have to start rebuilding with the way that our team has been, and we don't want to delay this rebuild any longer so that we can be stuck in mediocrity as what we have done in the last 2 years. So yeah, you know, I think this season might be the start of a rebuild that they're going to end, which means that when you're in a rebuilding season, most likely you're probably not going to make the playoffs. But at the same time, they're also, I think the Dynamo are also hoping, at least even if they're not going to make the playoffs, they need to try to at least be competitive and try to be much better than them finishing last in the Western Conference. Because coming into this year, you know, I knew the Dynamo was not going to be one of those top teams, but I definitely did not see them actually finish dead last in the Western Conference, and especially after such a good run that they had in phase 1 of the schedule. I didn't envision the fact that literally just 2 months later they would be finished dead last in the Western Conference. But let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.